Hey everybody, here is Roberto Varese at the GFCC. I'm really happy to be here today with Diego Soroa. Diego is will be one of the panelists in the upcoming GFCC annual meeting in Saudi Arabia this year. It's really great to have you here today, Diego.
Thank you. It's my pleasure, Roberto.
Yeah. So Diego is an architect based in Spain. He has been working in the intersections between urban development, technology, art, and entrepreneurship. Yeah. So, and one of the things that we'll be talking in Saudi Arabia in the GFCC meeting is how to develop better cities, cities that are more resilient, cities that are better to live, cities that can prosper, thrive in this world. And what's your take, Diego? You've been doing really cool stuff in things related to urban development, not just building or designing new buildings, but for instance, you've been creating one of your projects is to create a rainbow, and that's really cool. Yeah. So where's that? Why are you interested in connecting art, technology, and urban development? And what have you been doing?
Okay, so I am an optimistic and I am a designer. So by default, I want to improve things in general. And I think right now, architects or pretty much any other profession has a completely new toolkit with which he can change reality all around. But to change reality, you have to actually want to change reality. And in many cases, we found either cities or clients that expect the livability and lovability of their spaces as an outcome, but they don't include it as a premise of design. So I am pretty confident that if we are able to talk about the importance of those spaces, and we are able to incorporate the new technologies to the livability and lovability of those spaces, the outcome is necessarily much better. And to prove that, we try to explore the efficiency of the technologies when they are aligned with the purpose of creating community, creating better social spaces, better spaces for gathering, better communication, better self-organization, and so on. Because typically the technology, the outcome of technology is measured in considering economics or productivity factors. And what we try to incorporate here is emotional factors to try to use and improve the cities. That's why we explore how, with very low techs, we can completely change the perception of that people have of the city. Not only the residents, but also the people that come visiting those cities, whatever profile they have, because you can make big differences with very small projects.
Could you give us maybe some of examples of projects in which you are involved?
Well, as you mentioned, we have a line of projects that we call social hardware, because we put hardware to work for social efficiency, right? So we try a very clear example of a social hardware application would be collective spaces, plazas, for instance. But we very much like the residual spaces, like industrial spaces, lost spaces, spaces that don't have a quality to become places. And we want to incorporate that quality by means of using low tech. The rainbow that you were describing is a project called Over the Rainbow Under the Bridge. It's located under a huge bridge in Bilbao, which is an industrial city that has suffered a great transformation, a positive transformation, but that still has like a fracture regarding the industrial part of Bilbao. So we want to improve precisely that area, the way that people look at that area. We identify this bridge as a space for opportunity to change things, and we are proposing the creation of a natural, artificially created bridge using the water that runs underneath and the sunlight. So we just pump water in all the distance of the central area of the bridge whenever the conditions are ideal for the rainbow to be perceived from the city. So low tech, but with a huge impact. Those kind of proposals, like this one, are low also in investment, but they are very high in returns, because it's about giving people excuses to either smile or to gather or to comment or to take a picture or to go visit. And these little excuses, I think, are the things that are normally not considered by urban planners or infrastructure designers. They expect that to happen, but they don't design for that to happen. So we try to hack that logic. We align not only with data scientists, but also with social activists, the hackers, the entrepreneurs, to try to create new realities.
I understand that part of your inspiration comes from nature. Yeah, you've been involved in things like biomimicry. Yeah,
Absolutely.
so two questions here: what is biomimicry? Yeah, and how can that be used in some way to create better living places?
Okay, so biomimicry is quite simple actually. It's trying, is what humankind has been doing from the beginning of history. It's trying to find models of efficiency in nature, trying to understand how things are done in nature and to apply it to apply it elsewhere, to apply those lessons elsewhere. There are many, many examples in most of the shapes we have, in most of the strategies we use, because typically the problems we face as humankind are problems that some other species has already faced and solved previously. So if you're familiar with the concept of evolutionary convergence, it's when two species completely different come up with the same solution. So biomimicry would be with when humans come up with a similar solution that nature has previously. So biomimicry is like the secret spot for inspiration, no matter what your problem is.
Okay, and how is that connected to your work as an architect with someone that is intervening in urban spaces?
Okay, so there are metaphorical references and there are functional references. For instance, if you try to design a high-rise building, it looks like the horizontal strength that the high-rise building has to support is comparatively much bigger than the weight of the building. So you have to design to be able to support the strong winds. And guess what? Who's an expert on doing that? The trees are, right? So that's why structurally it's very easy to find relationship between the high-rise building and the high trees, because functionally and structurally they work very well. But biomimicry is also applied to many other things. In nature, what you find is constantly whatever thrives in nature is respectful with one basic idea: creating conditions conducive to life. So everything is part of a cycle. In humankind, we call it sustainability, or the from cradle to cradle cycle, and etc. And in nature's just not wasting and recuperating, just creating the conditions under which life can organize, emerge, etc. So we could argue that urban spaces are just the same thing. We need to create the conditions under which the social interactions are going to emerge, creating senses of community, or commerce, or entrepreneurship, or culture, or politics, etc. So it's all about creating the conditions. In nature, there's very clear examples of this context in which very simple laws allow for that emergence to take place. If we look at the ants or bees or so on, we look that they're being used as models to optimize the efficiency of traffic in many, many cities because they seem to be very effective. So biomimicry would be like a shortcut for efficiency.
Let me just a final question, Diego, here in this conversation. For sure, this is a conversation that will be continued in early November in Saudi Arabia. Yeah, and my final question is that are those principles scalable in terms of can we really have those things in a large scale in terms of big infrastructure projects, or that is something that is limited to special projects?
Okay, so let's talk about huge infrastructure, huge scale projects. For instance, in Japan and also in the United States, they're trying to revisit and redesign the high-speed train, the traces of the train. I mean, the path that they follow in like a large territory. So they use some fungus to replicate. First, they replicated the topography of a scale of an area, and they let the fungus grow there on that area, and they compare the fungus trails with the actual trails of the rain, and they saw like almost a perfect match between both of them, and that the traces that the fungus had done automatically with no intelligent behavior on the back of it were not only as good, but typically even better than the human design railways. So it's just, I mean, the problem of scale is no problem. As far as we are able to translate the logic of the problem that we need to solve to biological terms, we will probably find a solution there.
Okay. Diego, thank you so much. It'll be really great to have you in Saudi Arabia. And you all, please stay tuned, not just here, but the things that we'll be talking in the GFCCNO meeting. Yeah. Gracias.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.